Oh, right. Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we have got a Chrysler Crossfire in, and the thumbnail and video description is, can we fix a Chrysler Crossfire? Well, the answer is yes. So thanks for watching. That's the end of the video. I'll see you on the next one. No, so for those of you that don't know, a lot of people might say, Sam, this is old news. We all know that this is based on a Mercedes, but some of you might not know, and some of you might not have seen underneath one and stuff like that. So I thought it'd be an interesting video. So basically, this Chrysler Crossfire is based on a Mercedes SLK, a 170 SLK, with the famous V6 M112 engine in. This is actually Matt from High Peaks Chrysler Crossfire. He's done a really good video on it actually, so I'll leave a link for that below. However, he's had a few problems. He sold the car and the engine management light has come on, so he's brought it to me. I've also discovered another couple of jobs that needed doing on it, which, sorry Matt, but it's only come in for an engine management light. But upon road testing the car, I could hear a bit of a noise coming from the engine, so I've investigated that. And we'll show you what's wrong with that. But we'll start off with, why is the engine management light on? To kick things off, apart from this airbox, you can probably see that it is practically an SLK. If you even look here on the airbox, it's got a Mercedes part number for your air filters, what air filters you need. So how we go about fixing these is, I'll get a registration number off Auto Trader, eBay, something like that. Use a Mercedes chassis number to then order the part for the SLK, which will fit to the Crossfire. I have already diagnosed this car, so I'm not going to show you the diagnosis step as such, but we're going to demonstrate what we did, how we did it. So I've already ordered the part. I actually removed the part, got the part number off it, give that part number to Mercedes in order to get the part, because if you went through the Chrysler route, it's probably a bit of a nightmare. Right, so the problem we've been having is, if you come and have a look at this, this is what they call a secondary air pump. Now, not all M112s and M113s were fitted with it. Some were, some weren't. Don't ask me why some were, some weren't, because I don't know. Maybe one of you will know. Basically, we plugged the car in. So people are going to say, how have you plugged it in? It's a Chrysler. Well, you can plug it in and you can input it on the diagnostics machine in the Mercedes diagnostic machine as an SLK 320, which is what this car is based on, and you can do a full diagnostics. It communicates with every single control module. All the testing's the same as an SLK, which makes my life a lot easier. If that wasn't available, I wouldn't take on Crossfires. I have a few customers with these cars. I even have a customer with the supercharged version, which, if I'm not mistaken, is a Chrysler Crossfire SRT. Could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's an SRT, which is the same engine with the supercharger, which replicates the SLK 32 AMG. So yeah, I can use my Mercedes diagnostics on the Crossfire. Clearly, Mercedes used all their wiring, all their control units, etc, etc. They literally, Chrysler's just put the prettier dress on, in my opinion. I think this is a better looking car than the SLK in the modern day. I think it looks more modern. Does that make sense? As time's gone on, this looks, yeah, it's aged better than the SLK 170. A fine wine, as they say. I veered way off track there. Problem we're having is we had a fault with the secondary air pump, and the fault code was quite clear actually. It said secondary air pump relay malfunction, something along them lines. There's not much testing you can do with that. So where is that relay? I will show you. So fuse box, this would be the same on your SLK as well, by the way, and I think 208 CLK, if I'm not mistaken. So in here is what they call a K40 relay unit. The relay is inside here. It cannot be replaced separately. You have to replace the full unit. I will take the back off and we'll show you. As I was explaining before, you've got the Mercedes part number, when this control unit was made, 2003, which means it's the original one. So I rang Mercedes, gave them that number, in stock, and we can replace it. Take that cover off, and that is the bank of relays that aren't replaceable. That is the secondary air pump relay, and that's the one that's been giving us problems. Now, when we first inspected this, and luckily we got it on camera, we took the cover off and it was arcing out, making a bad contact. So what it's doing is it's activating the pump potentially when it's not supposed to be, and when it is supposed to be, it's not activating it, and vice versa. So I'm just going to close that contact with my finger and you'll hear the pump kick in. So yeah, that relay was arcing out. We'll cut to the B-roll of demonstrating that. Luckily we got it on camera. I have seen this part cause so many random issues. Obviously this one's quite a straightforward issue. I would highly recommend to replace on any Crossfire, any SLK or any 208 CLK as a bit of a preventative, to be honest. I've had them cause no communication to transmission control units, cut cars out, cars stalling when they get hot. Typically these suffer with crank sensor issues, or Matt's friend broke down picking this car up and it was a crank sensor.
The Chrysler Crossfire's broken down, believe it or not, and it just conked out. Engine light came on and then wouldn't fire back up. The joys of this job, honestly.
That's a common one, but there's probably the second most common fault. I think this part's about £160 plus VAT. That is from Mercedes. Let's get this out, let's get it replaced. Very simple to do. Undo all the plugs, throw this away. In fact, we probably won't throw it away. Probably be a good test of that. What we'll do is we'll write on it, faulty secondary air pump, and then if someone else has got a fault with something else on the car, like no communication to something, we could plug that in. Have we got communication? Yeah, we know it's that. Sometimes it's good to keep stuff like that, as long as you mark it up. You know what, it'd actually be interesting to know how much is this from Chrysler. Imagine if I'm doing this whole video saying, yeah, take that off, get that part number, give it to Mercs, and if you got one from Chrysler it was half the price. I've never actually inquired because, sorry, I've inquired for Crossfire parts before from Chrysler and it was just a nightmare. I needed some springs or something, so this is how I've always done it. But maybe I should ask Paula. I'll ask Paula to see if she can inquire how much that is from Chrysler. Hopefully it's not cheaper from Chrysler. Watch it be 20 quid. As you can see, exactly the same. Build date on this one is 2021. When you buy a brand new part from Mercedes, don't be surprised if it's a couple of years old. You know, they make thousands of them and they sit on the shelf as they get distributed and sold around the world. Maybe a good piece of advice would be have a look, see what your date is. If it matches the year of your car, it's your original one, get it changed. If it's not and it's a lot newer, maybe you could leave it. So definitely something that you could change yourself. I'm not sure about diagnose yourself, but I don't really charge labour to fit that, just the diagnosis of getting there. Matt would have been really happy with that. However, I explained before, upon road testing, I heard a noise. We got it back to the garage, went straight for the water pump, another common issue on these, and if you look down here, the water pump is moving all over the place. Again, a really common fault on the V6 and the V8, 112s and 113s. So I thought this would be a good time to show you guys underneath the Crossfire and how similar, if not the same, apart from the fancy frock, as an SLK it is. Probably not the most in-depth mechanical repair video, but it's definitely in my opinion, an interesting video if you've never looked around a Crossfire before. So we'll get it up on the ramp, we'll have a look underneath, and we'll show you the similarities. So straight away, I can tell you that that is a SLK undertray, probably. So if you come underneath the car, all the suspension set up, SLK wishbones, SLK roll bar, literally the whole chassis suspension is Mercedes. And if you look here, you can see the hub there, got the Mercedes emblems on and the part numbers, shockers, springs, ball joints, literally the lot. 5-speed gearbox, same as what we're used to. Obviously we've serviced them many a time. Got a broken exhaust bracket there. Don't worry, Matt, we'll weld it on for you. We'll get the welder out, clean that up and weld that back on. That's just going to be another annoying noise as you're driving down the road. Moving all the way to the back of the car, diff, Mercedes diff there. Again, emblem, Mercedes part number, and full rear subframe. Hopefully that gives you some interest as to that, you know, this is literally an SLK. It's interesting when you get underneath them, and when you're so used to another car, looking at it all the time, and you get under a car that isn't that car, and it is that car underneath, it's quite interesting. That's why I am willing to work on a Crossfire. That does not mean everyone with a Crossfire get booked in, because I can't take on any more clients at the moment. I have done quite a few of these over the years, and to be honest, I quite like them. Not many people like them, they think they're quite an ugly car, but I think it's aged quite well. I think Matt likes them as well. I think Matt had one personally many years ago. I mean, for what they cost, they're a bargain. This has done 49,000 miles. What's not to like? 22 years old, 50,000 miles, V6. Sounds good to me. Right, so first thing we need to do is get the coolant drained, which the screw plug has previously been snapped, so I will not be able to drain it from the traditional drain hole. Okay, what we'll do instead then, we'll pull a bottom hose off the radiator from the water pump to get rid of the coolant. Normally there's a screw underneath there that you'd undo and it would come out of that pipe. Unfortunately not on this occasion. So we'll get a bucket, get some cardboard down. It's quite slippy today. Get the coolant drained, get this water pump done. This is where you get covered in coolant. Try and do this as neat as possible. Whoa. So, as you can see, that was not successful, but that is because I can't use the proper drain, which just comes out like a tap. It's a fast way of doing it, but a messy way of doing it. Right, down we go. Get the belt off. Just going to make a quick mental note of the routing of the belt. As we've been explaining, again, if you look at the belt, you've got a nice part number on there. So if you need a replacement belt, there's your part number. Right, so that's the belt off, tensioners pinned up, so I don't have to leave my ratchet on. Loads of play in that water pump, so let's get it off. A lot of people in the comments I've noticed say, why do you always use Mercedes parts? Well, the truth is we don't. A lot of the time we do, but if there's a saving to be had, and I mean a big saving, we'll use aftermarket parts. We use a lot of aftermarket suspension parts, we use a lot of Lemforder, TRW sometimes, Febby. We don't mind Febby as a brand. I don't know if it's just because a bit of a fluke really, that's each time we do a video, we're mostly using genuine parts. But in this case, obviously genuine relay. I don't even know if you can get an aftermarket one. If you can, it will not be by a good brand. I'll say it'll be like a Chinese replica. This water pump, we've gone for an aftermarket water pump. The genuine pump was about £400. An aftermarket one was about 100. So there's a £300 saving there. We're going to go for it, aren't we? We're going to save the customer £300. When we don't use aftermarket stuff is, say if that water pump's £400, and an aftermarket one is 300 or 350, and there's not that much in it, we're probably going to go for the best quality one we can, and we're going to get a better guarantee. But in a lot of cases, guys, you'll find Mercedes parts are very competitive these days with the aftermarket suppliers. And when I say aftermarket suppliers, I don't mean eBay specials and Chinese specials. I mean good quality branded stuff. The prices are very similar, if not better sometimes from Mercs. Not always, obviously. So what I'm going to do is, I'm using the new water pump as a diagram, if you like. So each bolt I take out the old one, I'm going to fit it in the new one. And that way, the surrounding bolts that go in all these holes, all the way around, can be different sizes. So you could easily pull them all out, chuck them in a bucket, then you're thinking, which one went where? So as I take them out, I'm going to slot them into place on the new one. I'll transfer them then in the old one, and then I can refit. That pulley's just fell straight off. Usually you have to pry these pulleys off with a pry bar or a screwdriver or something, but that has just fell straight off. It's like brand new. This pulley I'm taking off has actually seen better days, so we'll change that as well while we are in there. It's about 20 quid, no extra labour. If I'm not mistaken, this bolt actually I'm removing is really long. Yeah, look how long that is. So that comes all the way out. So that goes all the way through the pulley into the water pump. Bearing's gone, it's spinning far too long, so we'll change that. So that is all the bolts out, and as I explained, I've put them all in the new water pump. It's also a good way to make sure you've got them all out, because I've been there before. You're trying to get the water pump off, it won't come off because there's a little sneaky hidden bolt somewhere. So as I explained, see all the different lengths? So we know exactly which one came from where. Funny if I put that down and they all just fell out. Right, let's get this water pump off. It's not going to come off with a tickle. We are going to have to use a pry bar to just break the seal that has been bolted on there for over 20 years. Bit of a wiggle.
You've missed the bolt.
I missed the bolt. Ah, you see. A good way to make sure you've got them all out, because I've been there before. Oh, have I missed that one there?
Because it's covered that there.
Oh,
it goes right in there.
Hey dear. Oh, now I've just dropped my socket in the coolant bucket. Okay. One watering pump. So obviously the bearing that attaches the pulley to the propeller has gone. See, it's just moving all over the place. Amazingly, that actually wasn't leaking coolant. Typically it would, but in this case it hasn't. So definitely doing this at the right time. New gasket, new water pump, new coolant, and as I've been explaining the whole video, which you're probably bored of by now, there's the Mercedes part number for this water pump. Should we see how much it is?
Yeah.
2010601.
It comes back as an unknown part with no price and it's in grey. Is it Alpha 112-201-0601?
Yeah, that's it. It must have changed part number, mate. Well, unsuccessful. It must have changed part number at some point. It's coming up in grey, which means unknown. Right, let's get this cleaned up. We're going to have to clean up all the surfaces where the water pump sits before we fit the new one to make sure we do not have a leak. Right, so now we are going to put all cleaned up, by the way. Gonna put the bolts in the old one. Right, so left a couple of bolts in so it keeps the gasket in place. Everything looks good. It's been tested. So it better work because it's been tested. I'm going to send the ramp up, I'm too tall. Let's get all this out of my way. Okay, and we are in. Put all the bolts in with our fingers because we want to be able to just wiggle and move the water pump as we're tightening things up. Go all the way around, tighten everything. That's the water pump all bolted on. Now, a lot of you might be surprised at this, but it is quite normal for Mercedes water pumps. Anyway, I don't know about anything else. So, on this water pump, this bracket here bolts to the water pump there via those two holes. But those two holes aren't tapped. And what I mean by not tapped is they don't have threads in them. So as you can see, the threads in there. So basically we can't screw that back in. That is not unusual. That is not because it's an aftermarket water pump and it's cheap and blah blah blah. The Mercedes genuine pump is exactly the same. Don't be surprised if you ever fit a Mercedes pump or aftermarket pump, just a water pump for a Mercedes, and you have to tap some of your own holes. Why that is, I have no idea. But we're going to have to tap two holes. The holes are already there. We just need to tap them to put the threads in. In this case, it's just holding that simple bracket. It's not a big deal. But on some water pumps, you're actually tapping the hole that holds pulleys on and stuff like that. You know, something that's quite important. So if you ever come across that, you've not got a faulty water pump. It's not that it's cheap. The genuine pumps do it as well. We sell AMG 63 AMG aftermarket water pumps, and you have to tap a thread in one of those holes as well. But again, it's the same if it was genuine. We'll measure the bolt up, put a tap in so we can screw it back in. I'll show you how we measure a bolt actually. It might be of some interest to you. Could do a toolbox tour. Anyone want to see a toolbox tour video? Right, so I have a very simple gauge to keep things quick and simple. So basically, put the bolt through the hole. That fits through M6 perfectly, so that is an M6 bolt. So now we need to figure out what pitch it is. At a guess, I'm going to go 1.25. So if I rest it up against there, no it's not. The pitch is 1. So if your threads fit in those teeth perfectly, which that does, the tap size we need is M6 by 1. Put the tap in and out of the water pump, and that'll screw right in. My eyes aren't as good as they used to be. 1.25, I got that wrong, didn't I? Yeah. M6 by 1. M6 by 1. Put that in the tap holder, little extension, and then we are going to simply run that in there, nice and straight. It's only aluminium, so it cuts really easy. In fact, I'm doing that with my hand. Two bolt holes tapped, so now we can just put our bolts in. So yeah, I don't know why they do that, but they do. I remember the very first time I discovered it, obviously many years ago. They never used to do it on like the 124 days and stuff like that. Why they do it, don't know. Maybe somebody out there knows. If you do know, let us know. Tell the world.
Probably something to do with costing, isn't it?
Costing? So they've made that whole pump and they just can't go.
Time, innit?
Nathan thinks it's cost. I think Germans won't be standing for that, won't you? There's no thread in this water pump. If you were DIYer and you didn't have a tap, because it's a bracket, you could Just use your muscle and power the bolt through. Okay, nice and tight, happy with that. Checked everything. As I said, we're going to replace the pulley. Now, let's have a look which way that pulley came off. So it's smooth on that side. It's got dots on that side. Came off that way, so that's the way we're going to put it back on. Just thought I'd demonstrate this tool. That is somebody I never speak to, so they'll definitely want something, help of some sort. It won't be, how are you doing? So basically, I was going to just demonstrate this tool. It holds that clip in its open position. So you're not opening it with pliers, basically. So when I put it on, and then I can close it off, release the lever, and then as I release, that will let go. So that is now tensioned. Otherwise, you're getting a set of pliers in there trying to hold it open. When it slips off and whacks your finger, it really hurts. Obviously, every mechanic will have one of those, but for those of you that aren't, and you've ever seen one of them clips and thought, how'd you do that? That is how you do it. Right, what's left to do? Big pulley, belt, fill the coolant up, get it bled, road test. It's, as always, well not always, but a lot of the time, wipe down, toolbox cleaning products. I did get some fingerprints on the airbox, to be fair, so get them off. Right, everything back together. Just going to send the car up. I've put, the car's already up. Yep. I've put the bottom hose on. I need to put the under tray on. Bit of a, while we're in there, get this bracket welded back on. It's just going to be another complaint, isn't it? So we'll just get that done while we spotted it. Matt's pretty easy with stuff like this.
Just get on with it.
Right, road test in the Crossfire. I've not driven one of these for a while, so this will be nice. They have an aluminium gear knob, and obviously in winter they're freezing cold, but I quite like it. Heated seats, we'll have a bit of that because it's been snowing here. What have we been up to? Engine management light, water pump. Obviously, because we've done a water pump, we've got to do a coolant flush. When I've been moving the car around while it's been in the garage, I noticed only one of the key fobs was working. I managed to get the other key fob working, change the batteries in the key fob, nice and simple. So customer now has 2 working keys. Exhaust bracket needed welding. Nothing unusual there at all. It just shows you how quickly you notice things, you pick up on things. The car only actually came in for an engine management light. I noticed the service light wasn't reset, but it has had a service at Matt's regular garage. They've just forgot to reset it. We have done that before, sent a car out without the service light being reset, and you will find the customers are distraught when you do that. We had a passenger headlamp dip beam, which was out of action, so we had a bulb monitoring light on the dash. 49,000 miles, what a car. All my heat seats working nice. Even the seats in these were better than the SLK. They're more of a bucket seat, they're more like a AMG seat. Interior, all silver, obviously Mercedes gear shifter, handbrake. I wouldn't say no to one of these, especially the supercharged model. That would be pretty good, wouldn't it? And the most important thing we've fixed is obviously the engine management light. Engine management light is now off, and the air pump, secondary air pump, now works correctly. Yeah, like I was saying early on in the video, that relay unit, depending on the year of car, there is 2 different versions of that unit. So do not use that part number I've given you and presume it will fit your car, because there's 2 different versions. Anyway, going off track a bit there. So how much does this cost? So unfortunately, as I said, it come in for an engine management light. We've ended up doing quite a bit of other work. Obviously, Matt being Matt is happy to get it done. Last thing he wants is a comeback. So, total cost to get all this done, drum roll, £777. Now, when I did the bill for this, I thought, God, that's expensive. I've got this wrong. And I checked the bill again, and it is right. It just shows you how quickly a bill adds up, even though you think you're having small amounts of work done. To break the bill down a bit, a couple of hours labour, let's call it 2 hours labour, a coolant flush, change and bleed, the water pump, like I said, £100 for the water pump, it is £100. A Mercedes one was 400, so that would have took the bill to £1,000. The relay unit was 160 plus the VAT, labour for the welding. We generally do a bit of a set charge for that, half an hour to not only do it, which just covers, you know, a bit of materials and a bit of faffing. Key fob batteries, nice and simple, and that's it. A little H7 bulb. But yeah, it quickly adds up, doesn't it? A couple of hours labour and a couple of parts, and before you know it, you're not far off £1,000 bill. But back to driving this Crossfire. I'll tell you what, they do drive well, these. Even though it's the same chassis, suspension setup, etc., I'm going to say that these drive better, and that sounds stupid if it's the same setup, doesn't it? But I'm convinced I actually prefer the interior. I think the whole car has dated so much better than the SLK. It's a fine wine, as I said. This is a hard top, which suits me down to the ground. I'm not really a convertible guy. You can get a convertible top that does not use the Mercedes hard top folding mechanism. It is a soft top, so that is a Chrysler thing. I have no experience with that whatsoever. This hard top model would suit me. Well, I say it suit me, I don't know if it would physically suit me, but you know, I'd drive one. You can actually pick these up with like excess of 100,000 miles on, which this engine is more than capable of doing, for a couple of grand. I mean, to drive around in a sports car for a couple of grand is cheap, isn't it? You can even get this V6 in this car with a manual gearbox. Now, that will be an absolute rocket, let me tell you. This is more of a cruisy comfort, reasonable power, but the manual mounted to it will be a rocket, so that would be interesting to drive. I'm concentrating on filming more content this year, so some of the videos will kind of be just run-of-the-mill repairs like this, but hopefully I'll still try and make them as interesting as possible. Hopefully this is of interest because it's not a Mercedes. Oh, somebody's broke down, and that's a mount the curb. That is not ideal. 5-way scaffolding van. Bit of a shout out to 5-way scaffolding, broke down. Anyway, we must go on. My first V engine was a CLK 320 with this engine, and it was just spot on. It's not slow, it's not fast, it's just got good power. You can overtake things, it sounds good. Why do they stop using these engines? I don't get it. I know that we have to comply with the environment and this, that and the other, but why can't they just advance on what they've got and modify things and keep the main engine? I don't get it. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, give us a like, a subscribe and a thumbs up. Is the thumbs up and the like the same? Not sure. Just kind of repeating what everyone else says on YouTube. So I'm sure that's quite annoying for you guys, but it does help the channel. The more of that stuff that goes on, the better we do, which means we can keep making videos. I'll leave a link below for our merchandise. Merchandise has been selling quite well. There'll also be a link below for Matt from High Peaks review on this very car. It's becoming a bit of a famous car, this. Had a video on his channel, video on our channel, so thanks Matt for letting us film this. It's always appreciated. So yeah, I think that's everything. So thanks everybody for watching. and we'll see you next time.